So on to part 2, and hopefully the final part of the HMV Stereomaster 2400. So we've put, if you saw part 1, we'd overhauled the amplifier, we've changed all the capacitors in the amplifier. The customer didn't have problems with the amplifier, but I know that he would do. And you know what happens, you send something in for repair and the next week something major goes wrong. So wanted to make sure we'd done that, because the capacitor is only about £16.50, so it's not the end of the world. Now the reason he brought it in for service is because the record player actually stopped, the motor stopped running. So we've got the motor there, we've got a switch there. So I wonder if the switch is faulty. So before I start servicing the turntable, which is done from the top, I think we're just going to look at that switch. With him saying that, I just want to check it. So I think we'll just start by checking it for continuity. So I'll move the camera and we'll just do that. Right, so I've taken the cover off that. Is that in focus? It's probably focusing on the case. So when that plunger pushes in, those contacts are made, and I can't see a problem with those. So we'll just pop the lid back on. I don't really want to power it up with the cover off that. I was thinking, because I have seen it a couple of times before in the last 50 years, that can snap, that one of those leaves can snap. And of course I can't just order another switch, we have to put something else in. I've managed to nut and bolt in a micro switch on both occasions when this has happened to me. And it's no good pinching one off another deck, because then you've wrecked another deck, and the same thing's going to happen now that this kind of age. Anyway, no, I can't see a problem, so I think we're going to now work from the top. Right, so he's got the manual spindle in place. I nearly couldn't say that. The automatic spindle is in its retaining clips just there. That's often indicative that the thing needed an overhaul. So we need to take this bit of trim out. Have we got a screwdriver to do that with? Oh, bound to use all the wrong tools as usual. So we're on Mr. Chippy's bench. This piece of trim's often missing. Oh, there's no circlip at all. Okay, there's no circlip. That was easy, wasn't it? Right, it's in very clean condition. Now then, that looks as stiff as anything. So I'll take the circlip off. So that really is stiff, and the auto trigger is seized. So that tells me the arm goes so far into a record and then it was going to just skip, because it's going to, as it hits that trigger towards the end of the record. But that is absolutely solid in there. So we'll take the circlips off it and we'll get that cleaned up. So it may be that it's just gummed up, it may actually run. I didn't solder on the wires to the tone arm because I thought if this record deck's actually got to come out, it's another faff, isn't it? You know, so I thought we'll see how we go. I could get that one off and get that out. Good grief, that is so stuck in there. Don't really want to prise it out because we don't. I'm going to have to. We'll apply some oil and leave that for a bit. What's he got on here? He's got some WD-40. That might do. I love using other people's benches. Okay. So I'll try and work that in, otherwise we'll just let it soak in, and that is absolutely solid. So we'll come back to that. I think what we're going to do, I think we're going to plug it in. We'll just see if that motor runs. It could be that the whole thing was so stiff that it didn't look like it was running when it was. So I'll get this plugged in, making sure it's off, which it is. So we're on, and let's see what happens when I press start. So it's absolutely right, the motor is not running. I don't know whether it's a lubrication issue. See if that can find its way into the bottom. So while that one goes in as well, we'll just see whether we can take this idler off. So that's the circlip. Withdraw the idler, and we'll just clean these up with isopropyl alcohol. So now, where does he keep that? He's got an aerosol of isopropyl alcohol, which is a bit more expensive way of doing it. So I get a piece of kitchen roll. He normally does electric guitar amplifiers on this bench. So they've just cleaned the stepped shaft of the motor. And then we'll just clean the spindle from the idler. And then we'll clean the idler. I think we're going to keep the idler off whilst we find out what's happened to the record player. I've just dropped the thrust washer on the floor. The top thrust washer, that's the lower thrust washer. Can't hardly speak today. So we're going to have to locate that. So there's a bit of dirt come off that. We'll do the inside of the rim at the same time. It's the metal one on this model, not the plastic one which you see on some of the cheaper products. So we'll leave that off. That seems to... I don't know. I was concerned about the mountings of the motor, but to be honest, it's just the way it's suspended on rubber. That doesn't seem as free as it should be. I think we're going to have to take that motor off. Well, what we will do is, to save me having all parts all over the place, is we'll get this sorted out and put back on. So just need to pop that off, take out the ball race, we'll put some oil on there. Good grief, that needs to come out. We need to put some oil down there as well. So put the lower washer back, upper washer, that's that. So I'm going to put some Where did I put that piece of kitchen roll? Here, thank you. Glad you were looking. So, we'll now just put some oil on the paper, put it on that shaft, and put some oil on that shaft. Now I'm going to clean this out with a pipe cleaner, which I've got somewhere. Yes. I bought these from a toy shop or a craft place because I don't think people have pipes. I know my very late grandfather did, and when I say very late, I mean I think he passed away about 1976. You know, he used to sit there smoking a pipe. I'm just going to put that in there and clean that around. I'll put some oil in there. I'll put my finger underneath, put some oil in there, and do the same again. Just clean the excess off which has gone there. Now we've just got to work on getting this bit out. I can apply heat. Before we get as radical as that, we'll see whether I can just push that out now with a screwdriver. What's happening is it's actually rotating on the rivet instead of on the thing that goes through. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the organ workshop. I'm going to put this in a vise, and I'm going to carefully hit this with a rubber hammer, and we'll get that pushed out. So I'll be back when I've done that. Right, I'm back from the workshop. So what I haven't quite taken it out, just so we can carry on with the demonstration. What I did was to apply heat from a blow lamp, and now, I mean, it just really easily dropped down. Just to give it a bit of a help, and hope that I can push it the rest of the way. I should have carried on and not done the demonstration. Yes, that was not ideal. Alright, we'll get some round nose pliers on it. There we go. So once again with the, I'm going to clean this up with the isopropyl alcohol. Get anything out of the groove. I think that's been degreased in the past, because it was a problem even when I did the training course and they were still making the later version of this, 2419. They were saying that it was problematic, and I don't know why they were putting that particular grease on. So we can either use light oil or do what Andrew suggested from Vintage Audio and use this grease, which we've bought in the Granville general purpose one, so we'll be applying some of that. So again, we're going to get that pipe cleaner through that hole, try and get whatever's nasty out of there. Once again, I'm going to put some oil in that hole, and we're going to rub round again like that. So I'm going to put that back and hope that that's nice and free. And the answer is it is. think we'll do the grease one on this as well, under the circumstances. First time I've ever applied grease to this bit. But as you can see, that's now nice and free. So put the circlip back. And the top bit back. I've got that the wrong way around, haven't I? I've only been doing these for 40 something years. No, that's still not free enough. I'm actually going to run through that with a drill bit, not oversized or anything, just to make sure it's properly cleared out. I'm going back to the organ workshop. Right, well, I've actually run through with a 4mm drill bit, and it all seems to fit properly now. There was a tiny bit of metal come out, so I may have just made it that little bit bigger, but this now, it's not sloppy in there, but at least it's actually going round and not going round on the rivet. So we'll try and put that back together. So as you can hear, that's now not seized. Now we'll put a bit of that grease on, and I mean a bit. I'll just run it round with that pipe cleaner before throwing that away. And that's all I'm wanting to do. Now these can be a swine to put on. But this one isn't. Excellent. I'll put the circlip back on. So back to that motor. I think that motor is virtually seized. So whether or not a record's played and the record's come to a stop for whatever reason and the motor's just carried on for 4 hours, I don't know. So we'll see whether we can do anything with that motor, or whether we're going to have to buy in a Garrard 3000 scrap chassis. So we'll see what happens as to whether this job can go out this week, or whether this job goes out whenever we can locate one. So the other thing I did want to do was to get this spindle out. I don't know what they've put it in with, but I'm going to really need to get some kind of grip on that without damaging it, because we need to put the auto spindle in just to test everything, even if they don't want to use it. So now we're going to turn the thing back on the side, and we're going to have to withdraw this motor. So I'm going to see whether we can just take the works out of the motor rather than actually taking the motor off. I think I've dismantled one of these once before. Perhaps on the training course in 1970, whenever it was. problem, isn't it? It's got that shaft. But actually, that seems quite free. So it makes me wonder whether it's lack of lubrication in the lower bearing that's the whole issue. We'll get another piece of kitchen roll and we'll run that round that armature. I don't know whether there's a lot of play in the top bearing. Can't tell at this stage. So put some oil in the bottom bearing. That's probably going to ooze out now, but it doesn't matter. I did casually look on eBay and someone's got a motor for £19.75. It does hurt me that people scrap these things, but there you go. We don't know what state the rest of it was. Well, it still seems quite free. Okay, well I mean that's, you can see that's going round. So I'll plug it back in. And we'll try and press the start button now. Well, look at that, motor's going round. If I did something good when I worked at Nottingham Radio, Mr. Smith, the owner, would say to me, "Go to the top of the class and jump off." Yep, it's going round a treat. So now we'll get yet another piece of kitchen roll. I'll have to put 5p a sheet on on his bill for these. I went to the supermarket and the shelves were nearly empty of kitchen roll, apart from some very expensive brands. I want to just clean to make sure we've not got anything nasty on there. Right, I'm going to wash my hands just in case there's the slightest trace of any greases. Right, we'll press the stop button. I found the thrust washer which I dropped on the floor. So we'll put the lower thrust washer on there. I think I made sure we'd got some, I did make sure. Just want the tiniest bit of oil on that spindle. I'm just going to soak that up immediately. The top thrust washer, the one that I thrust on the floor, that must be why it's called a thrust washer. And the circlip. I mean, I appreciate most of you would use circlip pliers to do this, but you have to appreciate I've got exceptionally strong fingers with me also working as a church organist. And now I've said that, I can't actually get that on as easily as I expected. So that's now going round. Now we've got to get this spindle out. So I'm going to get some pliers, and I will use the pliers round the cloth to try and pull this out. There we go, straight out. Because we're going to do everything with the auto spindle. I'm just putting some oil on this and just rubbing that in. I want it to be nice and free. I mean, when did this last work? Goodness knows. I know what we need to do, which I hadn't done, and that's put some oil down the hole. I don't think I mean, sometimes the platters are seized, but on this, and sometimes the cam is seized, but on this case, it's things which aren't often seized, which are really, really seized. I've got a sneaking suspicion the missing circlip, which holds on the turntable platter, is actually what also holds this in. Okay, what we're going to do is put on a sacrificial record. Yeah, I'm not going to. We're going to align the mechanism, but I think at this point, in case things aren't right, it needs to be a sacrificial record. Now, what about this stylus? I really need to look at this under the microscope, so I'll go and get that. So just using one of these. Well, I've seen better, but it doesn't look like it's broken. So what we've got, LPS. I can't even see what the other side says. It looks like it says 78 and then penciled out, I don't know. Right, we'll see whether we've got the art of putting this back in. There we go. We'll check the pressures and all that later on. So I'll just go and get a random 12-inch record. Now some of you will know I collect worthless Reader's Digest sets of records, this one, what's ended up, we've ended up having to buy 2 sets to make 1 set up, so I've therefore got some surplus records, and it's ideal when you've got some surplus records that we can use them for testing. I think before we continue we'll just do a pat test on this. So I've got the earth lead to the turntable. The reason I've got the earth lead to the turntable is it's only earth through the signal, so the Obviously you've got the left and right channels to the cartridge, and then you've got the screen which goes to the chassis of the turntable, which presumably goes to the chassis of the amplifier. So that's where we are with that. And that, rather than putting the test prod to the chassis, which we know goes to earth, we're kind of seeing it from that secondary hookup point, shall we say. So let's switch this on. Make sure the product's switched on, or it won't be able to. We'll go for the class 1 test. So fuse. This is a 500 volt test. Just thinking about this. Yep, it's passed the earth test. There we go. So fine. That's. I don't know whether the camera can see that, but there we go. Everything's passed. So at least it's nice and safe. All right, we'll carry on. Okay, for a 7-inch record, we'll go for this Mozart. Again, trying to avoid the pop record, and we'll go for side 2. It's a 33 1/3 7-inch record. Now, does this auto detect that? Yes, it does. That's on the edge. So I was looking for a 10-inch record, wasn't I? But did I find a 10-inch record? No, I didn't. We've got 6 of them, but no. Where have I put them from the last service job we did? I've got no idea. I didn't know where they're supposed to live. Still just on the edge. We've not even cleaned this record. Still on the edge. I'm not tempted to move it a pile just to get this job done quicker. There we go. Excellent. We'll go back to a 12-inch record just to make sure that we haven't taken it out of adjustment. That's why you're supposed to set it with a 10. What we'll do just before we put the next 12-inch record on, we'll just check this pressure. Whoa, 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 that's far too heavy. Good grief, we'll wreck the record. Now, how do these adjust? What I had to do is to get a Garrard 3000 turntable out of stock. This is been removed from one which is needing the cabinet doing, one of our own ones. So I'm treading carefully with it, but at least with it being out of the case, there is a knurled wheel just underneath there. And of course, once I've found it, I remembered it, but there you go. It is very difficult to find because I'm looking for something like that. And it isn't, it's a knurled wheel just there, which you just do with your finger. So we will put the camera back on the product, put this down carefully. and get adjusting. Just move that chair out of the way. Okay, so sadly the lowest I can get this is to 5.7 tracking pressure. So what I'll just show this. These scales only go up to 5. So what I've done, if we switch that on and then calibrate it with the 5 gram weight and set that, so we've got now, that's been minus 5 grams. So we can now apply the stylus. I've got 0.8 this time, so that's 5.8. Now that's not as good as I'd like it to be, but at least it isn't going to be on a par with some of these Crosley cruisers at 20 grams plus. So could do with being better. I'd like to have seen it under 4. But there you go, I can't achieve that. So whether or not there's spring in there has lost some springiness, I don't know. But I mean, he's been playing it for years, hasn't he? So, having set that as best I can, we'll put another record on. This time it's record 5 from, let's widen this. This time it's record 5. And we'll go for the B side in the hope that the copyright, the police, don't have me. So see if it puts down in the correct place. It does. So that's fine. We'll just move that forwards. And we'll take that to the end. I'll probably trigger the auto stop. And I'll edit this video in such a way that you're not listening to nothing for a few seconds. I don't want to try and push it any further towards the end. And whilst we do that, I'll select another speed record. We'll get a 45 RPM. There we go, that's the auto stop. So we've got a 75, we've got a 45 here. Life is a Minestrone is the A side for 10cc, and Channel Swimmer is the B side. Well, let's try the B side in the hope that the copyright police don't have us. Oh, not quite there. No, 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 no. So we'll just adjust that. This is why we do this. Let's try that again. Perhaps Mr. Chippy knows where my 10-inch records are. That's still on the edge. Okay, there we go. So we'll check it with a 10-inch record behind the scenes. But there you are, that concludes the HMV Stereomaster 2400 from 1969, and I'm sure the customer will be very pleased. Thank you for watching.